Communication is essential for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you've got an impairment or whatever. Good communication makes for such a positive experience. Treating someone like you would treat anybody else, describing, particularly for blind and partially sighted people, is the journey, where you are, where things are in the car, all sorts of things. Who, obviously, the driver, if he introduces him or herself, is so important. And, you know, if there's a traffic jam or whatever, just describing things so that there is that rapport between the driver and the passenger.
Communication in terms of using a taxi or any form of transport is essential. From the very point of calling a taxi and explaining to the operator that I have a sight problem, that the driver will need to perhaps meet me, get out of the car and meet me and show me to the passenger door, all the way through to the driver communicating with me during the journey, building up that level of trust so that when he comes to quote the price at the end, I feel comfortable and that you know, there's that rapport built there. That to me is important as well.
Be more patient, be more understandable, and listen. And if they can't deal with it, or if they can't really cope with it, or if they don't listen to you, then they're not doing their job out.
If someone tells you they have a hearing impairment, or you notice hearing aids, to keep that window open, and some cabs have windows, to keep that across and to speak clearly so that the person, to mention the person's name, or if they're fair, Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, and then say, I find that would be helpful, because quite often I'll go, sorry, I didn't hear you, and I get not talking to you, you know, and I wasn't being rude, you know, that sort of thing. Yelling doesn't work, but to speak up, to raise their voice just a little bit louder, and to speak clearly. And if I asked, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Not to get offended.
In my experience, the poor service that I've seen, I suppose, could be things like maybe a person who's maybe afraid or intimidated by a person who's blind and won't speak or won't communicate, perhaps won't even offer an arm to guide, maybe won't speak to me when I'm in the car. When it comes to, like, you know, that's to me a big deal. The person has to be comfortable, be able to communicate, and not being able to do that is poor, you know, I think is very poor.
The taxi just to communicate with you and tell you where you are and if you want help or not.
A good taxi driver is really valuable to me because I really depend on that person to help me and to kind of fit my needs, what I need, and to help me. And I also like to get a friendship with the taxi driver too, so if they're taking me all the time, I'll be seeing them a lot. Kind of look forward to getting the taxi, not kind of thinking, oh no, it's going to be such and such is taking me and they don't know my needs.
I only had one taxi, and he was only just, you know, trying to he was only getting frustrated because I couldn't tell him where to go. Mm-hmm. I think this particular company would need a wee bit of understanding about people with learning disability and people who are disabled.
Well, I remember one evening, it was quite late and I was going home, and because the driver wouldn't talk to me, because earlier on the journey he'd asked me what my address was, and I give my address. Now, he asked me where that was. He didn't know it. He didn't know the name of he didn't know the whereabouts of the street. Now, I couldn't describe that to him because I'm obviously being blind. I can't describe, well, it's down here, turn left, and the third and the right, and all that kind of detail. All I know is the address, and hope that the driver can then work the location out for himself. So because he wouldn't ask me enough questions and he wouldn't interact with me, meant that we basically drove around for a very long time because the driver got lost, and inevitably cost me a lot more money. And well, I'm sure he didn't have a particularly decent time either.
Do you know what would be quite great for especially young people with disabilities. They're all using mobile phones. If their text services would be very, very good. That means if there are any speech impairments or difficulties with communication, then a text is a form of communication that everybody understands, and usually it's free as well. So even a person can text, if they know they have a disability, they can text the taxi company, and then they know that's the way that they will communicate and get a confirmation. It's very handy.
Yeah.
Convenient.
It's handy, so I don't have to say much. So I'd rather have that than having to speak most of the time.
It's very, very difficult from booking a taxi. Some of the taxi firms, particularly in the cities, have a call system which obviously they text you to tell you what car is coming, the make of the car. Well, obviously as you're visually impaired you can't see that, but the very fact of having the text is really, really important, and I think more people should do that.
I mean, in terms of communication, another tip I would just give a would-be driver or a current driver is don't sit outside the front door and beep the horn, because I won't know, as a person in a house, I won't know if that beep is for me or not. I can't look out the window, I can't see your branded taxi sitting out on the road. I would always say, why not get out of your car and come and knock on the door?
Communication is vital in ensuring that people can express themselves and make sense of the world around them. For communication barriers to be broken, it is necessary to change society's view of people with disabilities. People with disabilities need to be seen and treated as people with the same rights, to live independently, and to be accepted as a valued member of society. An inclusive taxi service plays a huge part in enabling disabled people. The disability needs to be left behind, but not the person.